Happy 50th, Paul. Birthday.
Oh, right. To the show.
To the show?
Question mark?
Question mark. 1975. That was a big year.
Big year. Saturday Night Live, Market to Market, Paul Yeager, and there was one other thing I just found here in the last couple of weeks where I was like, oh, that too was in 75. What a great year.
What a great year.
A year to celebrate.
Yep.
And yes, I did that personally and professionally. You were a part of a recent Market to Market special, by the way. I'm Paul Yeager. That's Julie Knudsen. You've seen Julie before, heard Julie before. You're going to hear Julie now. I heard Julie on a random Sunday in August where we did the 50th celebration of our 50th season.
Of Market to Market,
Of
yes.
Market to Market.
Yep.
You were involved how?
So I got to direct and technical direct what you'll see here, the live podcast, not live, but the podcast video version.
In front of a live audience.
In front of a live audience, yes. That was really fun, and seeing them all together on stage, that was really cool.
You have some takeaways from this discussion,
Yep.
and you want to ask me a couple of things.
Sure do.
So we'll get into that here in a moment. But otherwise, this was recorded on a Sunday afternoon. We had an event in our building in Johnston. We'd already done live events in places across Iowa and in Nebraska. Yep. But this was on our home turf, so we kind of needed to do it right.
We sure did.
Had to do a home game.
Had to have a home game. We got to have that home field advantage, right?
All right, so watch this. This is everyone that you've watched on Market to Market in the last couple of years, minus two analysts that on our current stable were not there, but let's go to me.
From a few years ago, even. You get to see the way back of Paul,
Yeah,
too.
because I look dramatically different.
Maybe.
This is the Thursday, July 3 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Paul Yeager. Mark Pearson is off this week. It's official. The best-known stock market index in the world is now a bear market. A late sell-off Wednesday pushed the Dow Jones.
Hey, who is that kid that was on TV? How's everybody doing? We doing all right? I figure if I'm going to pick on the people you're about to see, I have to pick on myself first. 2008 was the first time I filled in for Mark Pearson, and I have to admit I don't remember much about that first episode. Not because it was so long ago, just a lot of things have happened. And we're now going to put everybody through their paces about their first episode. I've done the best I can to pull everybody. And if you watched the TV show on Friday, you heard me kind of tease this a little bit. I want to go to June 10th, 1977.
About all of this. But before we do, we want to turn, as usual we do at this time, to this week's commodity markets with market analyst John Roach of the Farmers Grain and Livestock Corporation. And John, with low subsoil moisture, how much lower is this corn going?
Well, Chet, it surprised me in how far it's sold off this past week. I don't think we'll see too much further decline before we see it start to recover.
We've got some other pressures on it, like wheat, but it should rally unless we get a lot of rain.
Well, at this point, the market seems to be watching the weather forecast a little closer than they are the crop development.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Roach. I told John what we were going to have for a great picture. He was more concerned about it was a leisure suit, so it looked great. The socks is what caught us off guard. But now I would like to go to, if I could, April 28th, 1989.
Sue, do you see anything else that might give us a rally there on beans?
Just primarily, I think if South America continues to have problems with these dock strikes, having ruled, the government ruled or the courts ruled that they were illegal, and consequently, if they continue to have problems with the credit union or the unions down there, I think we'll have some help towards the old crop maybe being stronger.
Well, now the farmers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sue Martin. At least I warned them what we were going to do. Maybe I didn't show everybody their photo evidence of things. Welcome, Sue. Welcome, John. Now I'm going to go to November 4th, 2011. We're going to skip the 90s completely and the early 2000s.
Is a relative newcomer to Market, Naomi Bloom. Naomi, welcome back. Good to have you back with us. Not the bin buster I think a lot of people thought we would have, but a decent crop. Where are we going to go from here price-wise?
Price-wise for corn, I think that we're going to see prices continue to hold the $6 area for the bigger picture.
$6, Naomi. Come on out, everybody. Naomi Bloom. Yeah, we'd like to go back to those if we could, prices. We'll talk about that here in a moment if we could. We also have, you get to see a little of the old hosts, and you saw Mark Pearson. You're going to see Mark Pearson now here from February 8th, 2008.
This is one of our regular market analysts, Sue Martin, and a very special guest analyst, Mark Gold, joins us as well. So both of you, welcome to Market. And Mark, good to have you here. These prices, this is Disneyland without going to Orlando.
No question about it. You know, when you get historic prices like this, we've all been waiting for beans in the teens for 30-some-odd years. Now we not only have beans in the teens, we have wheat in the teens.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Gold. Mark Gold. Yes, yes. Thank you, Mark, for being here. We now are going to fast forward all the way to 2014. The date was September 19 of 2014.
Is a newcomer to Market. Ted Seifert. Ted, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Nice to be here.
Talk to us about how U.S. wheat is priced comparative to the rest of the world.
Right, and that continues to be the problem with wheat, because if you look at the U.S. balance sheet, it doesn't necessarily have this overly bearish tone. But if you look at the global...
Ladies and gentlemen, Ted Seifert. Who clearly is in a hurry bringing his backpack, but I have a sneaking suspicion I know what's inside of there.
No, you don't.
No, I don't?
You have no idea.
Normally I'm in on all of Ted's bits. This is fun that we're going to keep it this way, huh? All right. That's Ted Seifert. Now we're going to go to March 24th of 2017.
Here now to lend us his insight on these and other trends is market analyst Chris Robinson. Chris, welcome to the program.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
What changed, or is anything changing in the wheat market?
The wheat market, unfortunately, has been under a lot of pressure, really, for the past 6 to 7 months. We've been in a narrow 70-cent trading range.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Robinson. Come on around front there and wave, everybody. Yes, yes, we got him to wave. That's good. That's an old offensive lineman. He follows instructions well. Otherwise, I think you had to run a bunch of killers, right? Isn't that what happened with gassers? Is that what they called them?
Yeah.
Okay, gassers instead. All right, now we're going to move to 2018, and it was May the 4th.
On these and other trends is our newest market analyst, Sean Hackett. Sean, welcome to the program.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Do you anticipate the USDA to lower their projections?
The USDA likes to be conservative with this. They know that a lot of times you really don't know the yields until harvest begins.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Hackett. All right, so now, as you can see, the set has changed. We have another host, and this time it was November the 15th, 2019.
Is Matt Bennett. Matt, welcome to the table.
Yep, thank you.
I mean, we're going to push and wait for prices to react until June.
That's a really a tough question to answer. The thing is, we've got to see this thing we've got to see harvest happen first. We've got to see it come out of the field first. It's really hard to...
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Bennett. And now we go to a time pre-COVID. Hard to believe this was 2020, and it was January the 24th. Oh, how our world changed just a couple of weeks later. I guess I never thought maybe Arlen was responsible. Oh, I just gave it away. Let's see that clip.
Joining us now to offer insight on these and other trends is Arlen Suderman. Arlen, welcome to the table.
It's good to be here.
Is it time to make some cash sales, and what's it going to take if we don't see farmers making those cash sales?
Well, we've seen strong basis this year, obviously, and it's been pretty much above average across the Midwest, largely because farmers have been small sellers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Arlen Suderman. Oh and 1, Arlen. That's the only time I'm going to mention it.
I posted
0-1.
COVID on Twitter, so.
Yeah. Twitter is all of a flitter right now because I just blame Arlen for COVID. All right. Let's go now to the year 2023, July the 7th. Joining us now is a new face to the program, market analyst Christy Van On Cheeseth. Christy, good to have you here.
It's awesome. It's great. Thank you.
At what point do we stop talking about that as the main story in the wheat complex?
Yeah, I think people still want to talk about it, right? You saw wheat up 50 at one point during the week and gave back those gains. When you look at kind of the dynamic of wheat right now, it's a tight carryout domestically, worldwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, Christy Van On Cheeseth. And that leaves us with one more chair to fill, and we did that on October the 27th of 2023. Do you see this as a buying opportunity for someone who's trying to feed some cattle?
For someone that needs to get coverage for corn needs, I think corn's at a good value down here. I think futures, as Sean alluded to, I don't think we're really going anywhere in a hurry. But when you look at
ladies and gentlemen, Ross Baldwin. Ross had the advantage of seeing everybody else walk out, and you wanted to know how you wanted to handle this, right?
Yes, yep, that was nice to stand back there and see that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our current stable of market-to-market analysts that were able to join us. Let's give them a hand if we could, please. And unfortunately, since I made the introduction so long and Dave took too long, that's it. We're done. Thanks for coming. Dave, my review is done, right? You said. Who remembers their first appearance? Show of hands. Everybody remember? Who's blacked out from that appearance? Mark, why?
I really don't know why. I'm 71 now. Things aren't quite as clear as they were 20 years ago. I just don't really remember it that well.
Yeah.
I guess who I was on was Sue the first time, and we had met once or twice before the R.J. O'Brien thing, but we really didn't know each other. And it was nice to have the opportunity for a guy like me from the city, coming on a show like yours and getting exposure to so many farmers around the country. When I would go put on seminars, it gave me a lot of credibility to be out there. Mm-hmm. Because, who am I? Some city kid from Chicago. Why listen to me, So it was a tremendous help in getting to know farmers and getting them to know me.
Ted, did you remember much of that appearance?
Of Mark's?
Mark's appearance, or yours.
Did you suggest buying puts? Obviously.
I probably did.
Good.
Hey, he's consistent on messaging.
Yeah. I remember mine. It still hasn't worn off, but walking into the market-to-market studio, it's just so impressive and so different than anything else that I had done or still have done. And it gave me goosebumps, and it was really fantastic. I was also quite a bit heavier at the time. I think it was 263 pounds.
Appearances change.
And I didn't have the corn hat yet.
Yeah, that's true.
That came in 2017, I believe.
But you weren't wearing a leisure suit like John Roach was. John, we talked about your wardrobe on Friday. You were the only one here on the panel that was at the old location down on Bell Avenue. What do you remember about 1977 and being on the show?
I really don't remember you asked who blanked out. I should have raised my hand because I don't remember specifically the first show. But one of the things that sticks in my mind was that Chet Randolph walked down to the bathroom with his microphone turned on, and we all listened in the studio, going, "Oh no, this is not good. This is not good." But he always kind of sang as he's walking along. He only went in to wash his hands.
Okay.
And so it was, that sticks in my mind. The thing that sticks really in my mind is how quiet the studio is. And as Sid said, or Ted said, walking into that when you're used to a noisy brokerage office with a lot of people talking and so forth, suddenly it's perfectly quiet, and you ask a question and it's like you're sitting there in a complete quiet spot, and that's stuck with me ever since.
Sue, when you came to Jessup for one of our road shows, I asked you about your first time on the show. We actually came up to interview you for a different story, and then it was about 3 months later you were on the show. Do you remember who you were partnered with? Because I actually did cut that out, but do you remember much of the experience of the camera in the studio, or in your office, to your time in the studio?
Well, I think that, of course, the studio is so different. You know, it's reality, and I so remember. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Age, right?
Yeah.
But I remember being on the show with a gentleman from, I think it was FGL, and we talked about the hog market. And I think I talked about this when I was in your hometown, and I said that I thought hogs, I think this was in September maybe, and I said, I think that December hogs will go to $50, and they'd never been there before. Far be it from me to ever say something like that.
Yeah, far for you to stick your neck out on high prices, yeah.
Yeah, and I was on the show, and I think it was right around December 5th or something like that, and that day they hit $50. How sweet was that? But the real kicker is maybe the next spring or something, my husband and I were in Ames walking past a brokerage office, and two men walked out and on the street behind us. And the one goes, "Hey, isn't that hog lady?" And I thought, just what you want to be known as, the hog lady.
Naomi, I know a little bit about, I was here when I was on the production crew when you came. You weren't nervous at all, were you?
Oh, I was beyond sick to my stomach, and Mark sat out in the entryway with me for an hour, just trying to tell me jokes and calm me down. I mean, I was shaking, I was so nervous, because it is gospel to be here, and it was such an honor and a privilege. And then, I grew up in my dad, we had our dog food business, and so he would watch the show every weekend to know about grain prices. And he would, if he had to run outside with a customer or something, he would say, "No, you watch and you tell me what Sue says." So I was, just truly an honor to be here, and I knew what it meant, and just so thankful.
Well, Chris Robinson, you didn't have much time to think about your first time, if I know correctly. I believe Mark was scheduled, something came up, and you were sent out to the minor leagues out here in Des Moines. What do you remember?
I remember the drive. That's all I can remember. So I think, we can get there in 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. It was
was Ted driving? Sorry.
No. But yeah, I was very, very fortunate to do that, and I guess I did a good job because you continue to invite me back. So, and again, I feel the same way. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to everybody, and I know that a lot of people depend on what we all say to help make better decisions. So it's a great honor to be here.
We're glad to have you here. Sean, you also have a connection to someone else on the stage as well. You used to work for John. Your first time, I mean, we had a couple of recommendations about you. When you came on, were you cool as a cucumber?
The history of my genetics is that when I get very, very nervous, my bowels get very active. And so here I am on the show, and I mean, it's got to go, and I got to stay on the show, and I got to answer why. And then I did the stupidest thing. I said, I think corn's going to go to $8 within 3 years' time, which I was just about right about. But I always say in the show that there's no place I would rather be than on the show in Iowa with you at that moment in time, and I really feel that way. It's a special moment. It's a special place. Someone like myself who's covered markets his whole life, to be recognized with some of the greatest minds in agriculture is very special, and I'm very humbled to be a part of it.
Glad to have you here. Before I ask Matt his question, how many in our audience, before I ask the panel, watched the show the first time not on their own decision? Who maybe has to watch it because the spouse or some? Okay, a few. How many on the stage watched the show when they were younger, and maybe it was forced or not forced? Matt Bennett, tell me about. I know it's super quiet in your house that you grew up in on Sunday mornings in Illinois.
Yeah, so we'd get home from church, and my dad would say, "You're going to sit on the couch and you're going to watch this show, and don't say anything, and you might learn something." And I told you this before, Paul, but just so the audience hears it, I couldn't stand watching Market to Market as a kid, because I was just a young guy, you know, and I'm sitting here trying to be quiet, first of all, but you know, so whenever I did get the call to come over and do it, it was beyond an honor. I mean, I probably watched more episodes than anybody my age that lives on planet Earth. So it meant a lot to me. But I think the thing that stuck out to me, going back to your first question, was all the names on the board. And I just looked at all these guys here, and it's a huge honor. I mean, it highlighted my career, really, quite frankly, to get on Market to Market and be a part of this club.
Thank you. And we've had your dad. We've talked with him before, and it's always fun to hear his perspective. Arlen, you are a guy who's, I won't say necessarily new to what you do now. You've started as an agronomist. You've been in the field. What's your first market experience?
Well, my first market-to-market experience was, I believe, at Husker Harvest Days, where you had a panel, and did so well that I didn't get invited to Market for another 15 years or so.
Hey, John Nichols, any idea what happened on that? Yeah.
Which just shows, you know, for all of us, we had our times that we had to earn our ranks to be on the show, and to get here, as has been said already, is a great honor. It's a level of respectability. It's a level that indicates that you've made enough mistakes to have learned enough to be able to be on.
Christy, you too have family connections. I know you've brought some of your family down, family in Iowa, but earliest memory, I'm guessing, is pretty similar to Matt's, right?
Yeah, my dad made me watch the show growing up all the time as well. And so I was fortunate enough to bring my dad with me one of the times that I recorded, which was really cool to be able to see my dad walk into the studio and kind of see the old setup off to the side. And, you know, I just think it was a really proud moment, not only for me, but also for my dad to be able to be part of that. And that's so fun. I don't know if any of you, I think probably a lot of you grew up family business, but that was such a unique opportunity. Also, my grandparents live like an hour and 15 minutes north of here, and it's, like I said, I'm going to preach what everyone else does. This is such a unique opportunity. Not only is this such an opportunity for everyone, it also just gives me such an opportunity to see my grandparents more frequently as well. So I'm very appreciative of that.
But there's one on the stage they shut the town down for, and they have viewing parties when he makes his debut. Ross, I mean, now granted, your hometown's not the biggest, but it is a big deal. When you were on, they had a viewing party.
It was. The viewing party was at my brother's house, so it wasn't the whole town. But yeah, it's been an honor to come on here, and truthfully, I feel out of place sitting next to all these analysts and the ones I've watched, you know, growing up, and it was extremely cool. I mean, my first time coming on the show, I was beyond nervous. I mean, I actually can remember when I got the email from Paul about coming on the show. Prior to that, we did an MTOM podcast, and I don't know if I was too dumb or naive to understand that it was an audition for going on the show. I just never thought about it. I thought the cattle market's on fire and they need to talk about cattle. And then probably a month or two later, Paul sent me an email, and my stomach literally dropped at my desk, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know about going on there.
Matt, did you, he contacted you, right?
Pretty quickly, yes.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly.
And you told him no at first, right?
No, I said, I think this would be the best thing ever. And so, you know, the thing about Ross, when he gets to talking about cattle, he might talk for 30 minutes on one question. So I said, if you go on there, you just gotta, you know, try to curb your enthusiasm, because clearly his knowledge of the cattle market is fantastic, and it's got functionality too.
I don't know. Did you predict this cattle run up like this? Are we on something here?
I do remember the first time I came on, October of 23, if everyone remembers, that was when we had a nasty sell-off, the fall and winter of 23. about a $50 to $60 sell-off in feeders and a $30 sell-off in fat cattle, and I was bullish. And I remember after I left the show, I talked about, I mean, the fundamentals are bullish and everything, and I remember my brothers telling me they heard from some people, boy, you know, he was bullish, and the cattle market maybe rallied the week after I was on the show, and then it just got hammered, and, you know, you start catching some flack from people, oh, the eternal cattle bull and everything, and, I mean, I didn't think we'd go this high, but here we are. I mean, it did go up higher since that sell-off.
John and Sue, I'm going to ask you both, you had a lot of experiences with Chet. Tell me his hosting style, John, and asking questions, because he was doing what you were doing during the day, and then he came out and did the show. What was that position like for you?
He knew exactly what he was talking about. And so his questions were always on target. And if you were a little bit off, if you were of where the mainstream was, he called you on it. And we did all that usually in a 4 or 5 minute segment. And we'd cover 3 or 4 or 5 markets, and you had to be quick and concise, and he was an excellent interviewer, one of the best interviewers I've ever worked with.
Your first appearance, I think I told John on Friday, his first time in 1977, it was 4 minutes, 40 seconds. So that was a lot of ground to cover, and you cover a lot of ground. Sue, you can sometimes, I can ask a question for 4 minutes. Can you answer for 4 minutes?
Probably not.
You mean longer or shorter?
Probably longer.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm a fast eater. I'm always quick. I'm one of the first ones to be done eating. I just woof it down. And someone asked me, how come you eat so fast? And I said, well, growing up, I love to talk. And my mother would say, Susie, be quiet and eat your meal. So I'd shut up, eat my meal fast, and then I could talk.
With Chet, do you share the same memories of, you know, he might push you and kind of button you in a little bit on an answer?
Oh, absolutely. He was a very direct questioner. I mean, he really made it very direct and concise, and always had such a good comeback with for another question. So yeah, he was a great interviewer.
And the transition, you were fairly new on the show when Mark took over. It wasn't but a couple of years. What do you remember about that transition between the two and how different it was?
Well, Chet was more serious, and Mark, what a sense of humor. I mean, people won't realize, while we're getting ready to do the show, and Mark's doing his interlude or whatever, before he starts, he's cutting up joke after joke after joke. And he's so witty, and it was quick. And I've always envied anybody that is quick-witted. You know, I can think of answers or responses to come back with, but it's always after the fact. His was like dead on, just quick. I remember that more than anything.
Who appeared outside of the TV show with Mark somewhere in an event?
I did.
Yeah, you did. And
Yeah.
Mark, do you remember? What do you remember from him in the public speaking realm?
You know, him and I we'd wind up being at the same thing, the North Dakota Wheat Growers or American Soybean Association. We'd both be on the dais. And, you know, Mark was always funny, and he would do that impression of Orion Samuelson, the room of agriculture. Yes. And how I got to know him, I'd see him on TV, and we were doing a meeting in Chicago, and I said, would you like to be the guest speaker? Oh, man, what are you going to pay me? I said, what do you think about that? Yeah, I can do that. And we just became good friends after that. And we would always, wherever we were, we'd be the two guys out in front of the hotel. He'd be smoking his cigar, and I'd be smoking my cigarette. And he'd go, you haven't quit yet? No. You have quit yet? No. And you know, that went on for years and years.
Ted, you have just spent a week in the cornfields, and you see different farmers and things like that. You all travel, I know that, but when you go in and out, just say like what you did last week, how many people, what do they recognize? Do they recognize you from this, I hope?
Yeah,
You're supposed to say
absolutely.
this, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely this. Yeah, it really, when I went bald, right, that's when people started recognizing me a lot more. But you know, like I was in Spencer, Iowa on Wednesday of last week at a 800-person event, and I can't walk more than like 5 feet without somebody stopping me and saying specifically, love watching you on Market to Market, love that show, we love the insight that you give, and yeah, people really, really religiously follow the show, and it's amazing, and it's so fun for me to be at a place like that and to have people that want to talk to me because of it.
We tape this show on Friday afternoons, always have. It used to be, I think Virgil would tell you, some nights it would almost be nights when we would record on a Friday night. Traveling is a big part of the show for some of you, and others it's an easy car ride. For Virgil, it was a phone call, and he would be over in about 5 minutes. John, do you remember, before we get into travel stories, what was the quickest phone call someone did to say, could you come do the show today? Did you ever have any of those? Could you come today?
I did a sub that way, yeah. Okay. But I lived at Perry, so I mean, I was 30 minutes away. It was easy.
Yeah. Anybody else have a quick turn? I think I'm looking at my locals that are. Sue, like I've had to call you a couple of times.
Yeah.
What's that like all of a sudden when you have to you haven't prepared for?
No, it's always easy. I love coming and doing the show. I love being here and talking markets and visiting with people that I see every so often, and yeah, it's easy.
Naomi, you have a notebook. I think many of you have notebooks. Virgil, again, I'm going to pick on Virgil because it's in my mind. You have a notebook too of things. If I would call you quick, I think you would probably not pick up my phone, right?
Yes, I'm known for this notebook. So I am a little bit anal in my preparation for this show, where I watched the week before to see what was said. So if I can build on a point there, I think about who's going to be coming on the show the following week. I go through each commodity and I make what's happening in the market, what are the big bullet points we need to talk about. I practice in front of a mirror still, and I think, I'm like, okay, if Paul asks me this, how am I gonna segue to what I really wanna talk about? And so I over-prepare, but I feel that it shows up when I am on the show and I, yeah, the notebook, people make fun of me. It's okay.
It's not a make fun of. It's just a reporting of what is over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you think you take it, I'm not saying that nobody else takes it seriously, but you clearly know what is coming in a great, somebody had asked me earlier about, do you share questions? I don't really share questions with any of you, and I hope that's okay, because like I said, I don't want to waste it in the pre. I would much rather try to impersonate Mark and sing and dance or talk about something else, because Christy, you might be nervous. Ross, you might be nervous. I'm still trying to, calm things through. So Arlen, Don Rose is a guy who if he gets called by a radio station, he'll ask how long, 90 seconds. You do a lot of quick hits you all do quick hits with people. What was the difference from you doing the 90 seconds to the 12 minutes?
Well, you adjust. You adjust your answer. I do 60 to 70 media interviews per month, and this is, but they're at the top as far as your opportunity to really explain yourself. When you have to do a 90-second, you have to just be really quick soundbite. You don't get a chance to really explain what's behind it. And what I like about this show is the opportunity to really explain what's behind it, to help teach more than just comment, but you're teaching so that the people can try to understand, so they can make good decisions.
Sean, you will condense things so quickly sometimes, I might not have enough questions for you. What is it, you really seem to boil things down into those sound bites. Is that something you practice?
Well, I feel that the best value that I can bring to the show is to provide the key sound bites of what I think is important right now going forward to the market and crystallize in the mind of the viewer what they should be thinking about. And in doing that, we're able to then cover more markets, provide more color, and give a breath to everyone that's watching the show. So is it something I practice? I just try to make a point to really hone in on what's really important. And the other thing I want to say is it's very important in this business to pay it forward. John Roach gave me the opportunity to work with him in 01, 02 when he started his office in Boca Raton. He took me under his wing. I went traveling with him in the Midwest. I did speaking engagements with him. I was here on the Market to Market show with him when he was taping. And then, Sue Martin, also took me under her wing, continued to, contact me and encourage me. And obviously, was one of the people who spread the good word to you about me on the show. And I would hope that, I can do the same for others that are coming up. Is if I see someone that's really hardworking, that's smart, that can provide value, that I can do the same thing. So I think that's an important lesson, and I'm very grateful to both of them for the opportunity that they gave me.
Pay it forward, or are you billing us with Chris Robinson and Jeff French? I mean, Mark Gold has helped give us both Chris Robinson and Jeff French. What is it that you looked for at a time when you were hiring for your firm? And were you ever thinking about them doing television and radio interviews?
Not initially. You know, when we would hire somebody, we wanted somebody that had a good presence, that was aggressive in terms of willing to make the phone calls. We hired a broker one time, wouldn't make a phone call. We couldn't get him to make a phone call. So they had to be willing to do the hard stuff that we had all done before. And, you know, certainly in my case, they had to be better looking than me to be on the show. So, and, you know, they all did a great job. And Naomi came on board when, you know, we were both at Platteville originally. And so I'd like to think that in many cases I have paid it forward. At the age I'm at now, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this, but it's nice to look back and say you had some part in helping some of these people grow and turn into the brokers that they are today.
Chris, you just want to give them cash now, or are you going to wait? How does that work?
No, when my background was I actually met Mark. Mark and I were both on the floor. And when I decided to, when the floor really went away, that's when I segued into working with farmers and producers. And there were, you know, a half dozen people I could have gone to work with. I was very, very fortunate that Mark gave me a chance to come and learn. It was a really tough first year because I didn't know anything about speaking to people and trying to help them. And I credit a lot of my current and past success from watching him. I mean, I used to go to watch him do his seminars, really, you know, so absolutely positively, he's made a big difference. And I know I speak the same thing for Jeff, too. We learned a lot from Mark.
Matt, we talked about with Ross. I mean, you have a stable of folks, too, that are in your operation. I guess I'll ask you the same thing I did to Mark. I mean, do you think about them when you hire them, knowing that they're talking with clients and customers, but also are going to do some media, too?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer the media part first. So, you know, we hired a lady who used to work for Ag Day, actually, Betsy Gibbon, and she's our marketing director. And one of her tasks is take some of our bright young minds and help them with different type of media interviews. So if it's a radio spot, of course, you know, you just got to bang, bang, bang. You got to hit it fast and just try to help them with that. And so, but when we're hiring them, I think one of the main things we look for, of course, is the drive and enthusiasm these guys have talked about. But certainly integrity, because in this business, sometimes you can run into some issues there. And so that's one of the main things that we try to focus on as far as our hiring practices go. We've been very fortunate to get a lot of young merchandisers that have wanted to join us. And I think a big reason why they want to is a lot of them are type A personalities, but they still want to be able to have a family. And that's one thing that we try to tell them is that if you come on board with us, family has to come first.
And sometimes getting home to family is a challenge. So a couple of you get on planes. Some have to fight snowstorms either in or out. Naomi, Matt, and Ted were on a panel a couple of years ago that I exchanged a lot of messages. So part of what I do or have done for years is book everybody. And I play weather forecaster a lot in the winter. So Ted, Naomi, I can say here, this is what it looks like this week. I think you can make it. And then Matt will say, you're full of it. And he says, however, I think I can make it. This particular time, Naomi, getting here wasn't the issue. It was leaving. What do you remember of that storm?
Well, I remember two storms, and I'll get them mixed up.
Yeah, that's right. There were two for you.
So there was one storm where, you know, we're looking at your phone, you know, on the way out, and you're like, don't go. Don't leave. Just stay here, and you might not even be able to leave until the afternoon the next day. But I took your advice that time, and I did stay, and I remember, holy smokes, because they shut down, you know, interstates, they shut down highways, and I don't think I even was able to leave until like 2 o'clock the next day to drive. It's 6.5 hours home to where I live in Wisconsin, and it just brutal and icy the way back. And then there was one time that I drove, and I'm like, I'm gonna go for it. And you're like, well, you're gonna go for it, but here's the way you gotta go, because if you go this direction, you're really gonna get stuck, and you're gonna be stuck for 2 days, but if you go this direction. So I made it to Iowa City, and it took about 3.5 hours, and I was singing hymns the whole way, white-knuckled, and I stayed behind, Lord have mercy, on this truck driver that was in front of me. just plowing the path, and I had to pee so bad, and I'm like, but I'm not gonna get off the interstate, I'll never get back on. So I got to Iowa City and stayed the night. And then the next day I couldn't like leave until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and it was so slow going home. But yeah, when you told me about the no tow.
Yeah, the tow ban. Yeah, we're famous for that in Iowa.
And I had never heard of that in Wisconsin. And I was like, what do you mean they won't come and help you? And I'm like, well, I can't. I'm like, my dad's not gonna come, my husband's not gonna come, so okay, I guess I'll stay. So.
Ted, you had a same trip, because Matt's punchline's different. You had similar experience too on those two?
Well, yeah, so first of all, there's never a time where you tell me not to come that I'm not gonna come. You pretty much had to lock the doors on me during COVID because I was trying to come in. But I'm not afraid of snow. I'll drive in anything, it's fine. But on that particular occasion, I did stay that night in the hotel lobby, bar, whatever. Marriott downtown's very nice. And I really enjoyed hearing your guys' story of how hard it was to get home while I sat there and, well, just relaxed. Yeah, exactly. And then another travel story. This one time I was on an airplane with Mark Gold, and the stewardess is male stewardess is whatever. Flight attendant. There we go. Flight attendant.
I was gonna let you dig, and I was like, nah, let you
Thank
go.
you. Well, you did let me.
Yeah.
Okay. The flight attendant spilled a virgin Bloody Mary all over Mark in his shirt and his pants and but he was a good sport about it. He didn't make a big fuss. I handed over the napkins as fast as I could. And it looks like you got a new shirt too.
And the truth of the matter is,
yeah, look at that.
I stopped at Target, got a $30 white shirt because the other one, the club soda and the Tide stick didn't work too well. So
that's today,
That was
right?
today.
That's
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
They were on the same flight today.
Yeah.
Matt, you tried to go. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, one thing I want to say, though, before I tell the story, and Ted and Naomi will vouch for this on these occasions, you always check with us, let us know when you get home. You know, so we know you guys care a lot, and we appreciate that for sure. But I remember Ted and Naomi said, "You're freaking crazy. Why are you trying to go home?" And I said, "I drove my truck for a reason, guys. I'm going to go home to my family." And so I get out on the interstate, I-80, and I'm sitting here running 45 through a blizzard, and semis are going around me running 75. And I get out closer to, I don't know, I'd say I was probably a little ways from the Quad Cities, maybe to the big truck stop. And I realized my headlamps aren't worth a crap at this point. And I'm like, I must have snow iced over it. And sure enough, there was about this much. Well, then I've got to go through the dance in the middle of a blizzard of trying to get that chipped off without breaking my headlights. 6-hour drive. It took me almost 11 hours to get home, but I did get home.
On a trip that normally is between six.
It's about six. It's about
yeah.
6. It took me 11 hours, but I did get home.
Christy, you went to school in North Dakota. Are you laughing inside right now at all of these people?
Yeah, I actually travel in poor weather, like the entire month of January and February during my meeting stretch. So a lot of my meetings are out in the Dakotas and parts of Minnesota. And let me tell you, a little snow goes a long way in the Dakotas. So that is my life for the most part. And I'm actually not a very good driver, period. So you put me on some snow, it doesn't always go that well. But like I said, I enjoy these stories. I think it's great to hear them. It's really fun.
Ross, have you had, you're a cattle guy, so you got to feed no matter what. You think the same way. We haven't put you through those paces yet.
I haven't had to drive in any bad weather yet on the way down here.
Okay, all right. So Arlen, I think we had one storm with you. Chris, I think you came in a day ahead. John, have you ever altered flights to come up since you moved to Florida? Have you ever done that?
I always come up 1 or 2 days early.
Yeah, you build in some pad on that. Now, I'm saving Sean because Sean sometimes makes his trip here creative. You're based in Florida, and when we book the date, you will then maybe possibly schedule another appointment. Well, you all will do that. But Sean, you've done some creative things in your travels to get here.
Well, the one that was most interesting was, I always plan to get here the day before. And other than this one time, I always do. But I was speaking in Nashville, and this was, I think it was last year or the year before when it was super cold, a lot of snow, and flights were canceled and it was all messed up. And I actually called Dave and I said, I may not make it. It's possible I may not make it. So I got so creative that I actually had to take a 9-hour Uber, drove in to the show, and I made it with 1 hour to spare. And I walked in, and Dave had backup. He had backup. But I walked in, I literally sat down, did the makeup, did the show. I didn't have time to be nervous that day. but I said to myself, I am going to get on the show if there's any possible way that I could. But I asked the Uber driver, has he ever taken a 9-hour, trip before? He says, no, you're my first.
How much was that?
Yeah, that was not a cheap. What'd you tip on that? What's the...
I don't remember, but it was not cheap. But you know what?
We appreciate that.
I was glad to be here, and it was a great show.
Any other travel stories that you want to share before I move on? You got one, Mark?
I was in North Dakota.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that, yes.
And I was between Arthur and Buffalo, if you know where that is. Mm-hmm. And it was just a blinding snowstorm. It was the first time in my life I drove a car into a ditch. And I remember looking at the guy that was with me. I said, how many candy bars do we have? Are we going to get through this? And I hit the cell phone, and I called the bank we were going to. And I said, we're on the road, and I took a sharp curve. Oh, we know exactly where you are. We'll be there in 10 minutes. They hooked up a truck and pulled me out of there. And then one time I was in Bow Bells, North Dakota. Do you even know where Bow Bells is?
I don't know that one.
Very northwest corner of the state. It was the night of the Bush-Gore election. Massive snowstorm in Bow Bells. 20 miles of telephone poles that snapped off on the highway across the top of the state. And I told people I was so far out in the country, we didn't even know who won the Gore-Bush election that night. And that was North Dakota.
Is this also the trip where you rolled the window down and stuck your head out and kind of drove?
I said to my partner, I said, how do you drive in this blizzard? And coming towards us was a woman with her head out the car driving like this. I said, I guess that's how you drive in a blizzard in North Dakota.
I suppose we should talk a little bit about agriculture, John Roach. 1977. Sue, same thing. You can. I'm going to start with you, John. Agriculture at that point to now. What's the biggest difference?
We were headed into the farm crisis.
Did you know it at that time, do you think?
Well, it wasn't called the farm crisis at that point.
But did you know that warning signs, we knew inflation was high at that point.
Everything was high. All the cost structures were high and the prices were coming down. And so we were in a panic kind of situation shortly thereafter. Not so much in 77, but shortly thereafter. I started my own business in 1978, which was really horrible timing, absolutely horrible timing, but turned out to be a blessing, actually, because if you make it during the difficult times, and actually for I think most of the farmers out here would tell you that if you started farming in the late 1970s, very early 80s, it was a horrible time, but turned out to be a blessing and great opportunities at that time.
So is the producer different from the 80s to now?
Well, technology is so different. Faster pace, the information that is out there available is much quicker to be able to garner, or whatever you want to say. So I think that the markets are still about supply and demand, but it's just the fast pace of information and the availability of information is so much greater. And now we're starting to look at AI-generated information, which I sometimes question, is AI as smart as it thinks it is? I don't know.
Naomi, you mentioned your dad, and we've talked about the 80s before in your family. Has that given you a different perspective when it comes to dealing with customers and clients right now?
Yeah, so my perspective and my story was in the 1995, 96, when the price of corn and beans had rallied so much, because my dad was an end user. And so that was an input cost that my dad just did not see coming as the increase that it came. And it really affected our family business. And so that, and I dated a hog farmer son. So in college, in the late 90s, when the hog crisis was happening, I saw how his family was affected. And so just both experiences just taught me the family dynamic, just the human aspect of it, and how, farming is awesome, but farming is a business. And you have to be able to learn how to have that business hat and that business mindset along with all of the fun things that are about farming as well. So those two experiences just really helped me, I think, just have a better rounded opinion and view of how to work with clients and just be aware of things.
I'll go to you in a minute, Mark, but I want to go to Arlen because kind of what I asked you in the very beginning. Your career has been a little different. What has changed with the client relationship from your early days to your current days and how you approach looking at things?
Well, I started off in the extension service working with farmers, doing test plots in the fields, et cetera, and trying to work with them, and that was in the 80s and during those hard times. And I spent a lot of time working with farmers who were struggling to make ends meet, struggling to survive, trying to find agronomic ways that they could cut corners on expenses, but yet amplify yields to get by. But they kept asking about the markets, so I started studying the markets to a great extent. And then as we got in the 90s, I started seeing the influence of speculative money, and that really increased as we got into the 2000s. And then we had the expanded position limits and the algo computers that automatically put orders in, and the markets changed dramatically, speeding up everything. Everything speeds up now. The cycles speed up, the seasonal speed up, the responses to the markets. It's amplified moves. And so now it's a factor of remembering the people behind it who are hurting, whose bottom lines hurt. Remember sitting across when I was an advisor working with farmer clients in the late 90s, early 2000s, and seeing them, they're struggling again, and every decision impacts their bottom line, their ability to put food on the table and survive for the next year. And trying to remove the emotion from it, trying to make sure they had as much information, because the funds that drive these markets, they have the information. The market know-how, the market knowledge is there. The farmer's the one oftentimes who's on the outside, and I want to provide that information to them so they know what the market is actually trading.
Mark, you've been at a few tables, had a few meetings. What's the farmer of 2025 asking you now that they didn't ask in the 80s?
Well, I think there's much more in tune to marketing. When I first started going around talking to farmers in 1995, it was tough because you couldn't get them on the phone. This was before cell phones. If you didn't get them at 6:30 in the morning before they went out for their chores, or at 12 o'clock when they came in for lunch, you didn't get them. So, that's been a big help. But I think the biggest thing, for me, my mentor in the business was a gentleman by the name of Lee Stern. And Lee he'll be 99 years old in December. He's probably the longest surviving member of the Board of Trade. I think he's been a member 70 some odd years. And the one thing he always would drill into my head is you can't buy integrity. And going along with what Matt said, the integrity is it. And if you don't have that, and that's what this show has been so helpful with me in gaining that integrity to the farm crowd. And I think just overall, the farmers have realized that you guys can grow the best crops in the world. Nobody has to teach you how to grow a thing. But it's the marketing where so many guys just kind of take it for granted, but they've certainly learned in the 25 years I've been helping farmers. And a lot because of all the people that are on this stage touting the same thing. That look, if you don't like me, find somebody else, but you got to do the marketing. And I think, the marketing has really become more in the forefront.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing Chris Robinson jump up and down in the back saying, just do something, just answer the phone right now. I mean, you have been writing about that for a long time.
It's risk transfer. The Board of Trade is over 150 years old. The reason they built it was so you'd have a place to transfer your risk. You talk about the speculative money. Everybody loves to hate those guys. They're there to take the other side of your risk. Let them have your risk. You're a farmer. You're a one-way speculator. You're like the guy that would buy 200 contracts of beans and go down to the bar and then come back at the end of the day and like, well, did I make money or did I lose money? So you need to be prepared to transfer risk to the people that want it. So that's the biggest thing that I think we all try and do as brokers.
Okay. For For those of you who are in the audience, we're going to dive just for a little bit here in the last few minutes to current things. If you're watching this in October, just forget what I'm about to ask Ted. He answered this in August. Ted, let's talk. I made the history lesson. Now let's talk current. You just spent time in the field.
Yeah.
How accurate? How big is this crop going to be? Let's talk corn first.
Yeah, it's big. I know the guys on the East were a little disappointed with what they saw, especially in the state of Illinois. But I mean, what we saw in the West was really very good. We were surprised to see how much southern rust and tar spot was popping up in Nebraska and western Iowa. But the timing of it coming as late as it did, I don't think it's going to have a tremendous impact on yield. It will have a draw on what the top end potential could have been. But I think we're looking at a really good crop. And we saw the USDA's numbers, Arlen's numbers, and also the pro farmer numbers. I think they're low. I think the reality exists somewhere in between. Sure, we still have to see what weather is, to finish off. Beans are the bigger question in my mind. I think the East is going to have a dry finish, similar to last year. The West is going to have a better finish, but also there's some disease issue there too. For me, that soybean yield can be anywhere from a 52 to a 55.
All right, Christy, I think the last time you were here, you were remarking how things didn't look as good as you thought. It took you a long time. Now that you've made this trip, I know you had a little bit of a detour, not quite the same, but you went through some big corn growing areas. What'd you see?
Yeah, that pro farmer number for Minnesota was huge, and that's a hard number for me to chew on. I drove southern Minnesota multiple times. I know we talked about this. My oldest daughter plays softball, and I coach her softball. She doesn't love it, but she deals with it. And so...
Oh, the stories. We could do a plus about
yes,
your coaching.
Paul was my confidant through the season. He really helped me out. So in case you're curious what kind of conversations go on the backdrop, he's really your emotional support person.
And Coach Ross too, don't forget.
Yeah.
We also have Coach Ross here.
And so I drove that Minnesota stretch multiple times throughout southern Minnesota for various softball events, various other events, a couple fun events for golf tournament and family time. And then we came down to Okoboji here this weekend to have one last hurrah with the kids. And there is so many drowned out spots in southern Minnesota that I am just struggling with the fact that we can pull that big of one. Granted, you look at kind of the crop Minnesota had last year, it was a very poor crop. So I think you'll find it somewhere before. I think Ted's exactly right. I think that your answer is somewhere between Pro Farmer and USDA. But when everything shakes out, it's a big crop coming. So you got to find something to do with it.
Sean, you're removed from all the noise of things being well outside the area. What are you looking at and listening to?
Yeah, I mean, I just try to stick with statistics. Everyone has a view of the crop from where they're at. When I look at this year and I look at what did we see that was unusual, what we saw that was unusual this year was a very unusual large number of warm nights in the month of July that actually continued here in the month of August. So we had a wet year for the most part, although it's having a dry finish. We had a cool year for high daytime temperatures. We had warm nights. And when you look back at since 1950 at all the years that we had similar conditions, we were never able to pull off a crop above trend line. That doesn't mean this crop can't be above trend line, but for the yield to be 189, given the conditions that have occurred and given the conditions that created yields from the past, that seems extremely unlikely to occur, especially that we threw 2 million acres extra into the mix, which inevitably were from the West, from fringe acres. It's inconceivable to me that statistically that 189 is possible in my statistical opinion.
Matt, the rain stopped around you. What are your farmer friends doing right now?
Well, they're frustrated. There's no question about it. I mean, there's no doubt that we had, in all honesty, a really good weather pattern in that it was a dry June after a decent planting window. We were a little bit later than what we wanted to be, but then all kinds of rain in July. And so we built this huge plant, no doubt. It looks great from the air, looks great from the road, but then we turned off dry. And so the corn crop, in my opinion, in our area is going to be awfully large, but it's not going to be near what it was. I mean, we probably take 25 to 30 bushel off of what we thought we were going to see. The problem that's been alluded to already is the bean crop. And so we've got beans that are potted top to bottom. They look fantastic, but when you haven't had rain in almost a month, this is a bad time of year to stay dry. So one thing I will say, I just want to point something out. I mean, as we talk about yield, I think we are all probably doing a good job of this, but one thing I keep pointing out to producers is that, you know, the USDA increased demand 545 million bushels in this report. So if we go ahead and we start drawing down on this yield, we got to understand there's a buffer there. You know, and so it might be pretty tough to get below a 2 billion carry, even with a yield much smaller than what the USDA suggested in August. So I don't want anybody to forget that.
We'll do a show of hands here of the panel in just a minute. But Ross, I'll go back to my first thing I talked to you about. Are we anywhere close to being done with this rally in cattle?
I wish I knew, Paul. And
well, I mean, I know, that is. I mean, and I ask it.
And I think anyone sitting up here, honestly, I would deflect to guys like Mark Gold or John Roach or Arlen or Sean that have been around so much longer than me. But truthfully, you guys haven't ever seen anything like this. And we're just, the fundamentals are so bullish right now, but we've taken these prices so much farther than anyone in the marketplace thought that we could. And, you know, I mean, history would tell you that cattle don't put their highs in until you're farther down the road in the expansion phase, the heifer retention, and we're not there yet. So history would tell you, no, the highs aren't in, but at the rallies that we've seen, we've just seen feeder cattle rally $50 the month of July and August. I mean, it's some of the largest rallies we've ever seen on record. And demand remains phenomenal. You throw in the New World screwworm, the impact that's having, that's 1.2 million less feeder cattle coming into the country. You throw in the Brazilian tariffs, and you can paint the picture that the highs aren't in, but with the prices that we're at, you need to be managing risk, because I don't think any one of us would be shocked if we walked in one of these days and they say, yep, 360 feeders is high enough and 245 fat cattle is high enough.
John, as we look to the next 50 years, what's the biggest thing you think we're going to have to deal with? Is it we're going to look back at 2025 and go, oh, that was cute, those prices were cute? What do you see here, the next 50 that we can plan for?
Well, we talked about technology. The thing about technology is that it goes across the entire world as fast as somebody hits send on an email. And so what I think happens around the entire world is we're going to see people's appetites and people's demand and people's capability to do economic things expand. I mean, it's interesting that you could go to almost any place in the world and you can take somebody's credit card online, you can send a product with DHL or somebody else, so we're able to do things all around the world, and I think that the impact of that means that people have some successes in areas that maybe they haven't had successes, and I think that creates demand and economic growth. And so I think that the picture is that we have a growing world, although it's growing at a smaller pace than maybe we thought it might grow, but not from a standpoint of knowledge and opportunity. And so I think that we have to be optimistic about the demand for agriculture products. And I think that the environment we're in right now, where the administration is working hard to do trade deals, it's agriculture that we have to offer the world that most of them don't have, that they want. When they can get the money to afford it, they want it. And they know our agriculture, our meat and milk and eggs, I mean, we produce the top quality in the world, and they know that. And so I think agriculture's outlook is promising. And so I think that as we go through this difficult period ahead, you have to, and I say difficult because the profits are not there. But as we go through that, you have to look out forward and say, we're in a period of growth, and unfortunately the cost of outrun it. And what's interesting is the smartest money in the world is buying our farmland. And it's not going down in value much.
Which is different than 1977.
Completely different.
So
exactly.
I mean, there's a whole different thing. All right, Naomi, what do you want to ask the panel? You want to ask anybody anything? Sue, you want to ask anybody anything? Not
I
me.
want to ask her.
Yeah, ask her a question. I told them I was going to let them talk to each other, but I have a hard time
We all
ceding
talked
control.
backstage.
I know, you did. That's what we should have rolled on. All right. Anybody want to ask anybody anything? Come on, Sean.
Sue, regarding cattle, because obviously we're in what I call la-la land, for lack of a better term. I look at things like rate of change, percent above 200 moving averages. How do you look at a market that's going parabolic, and how far you can stretch the rubber band to when it might recoil? You've been looking at parabolas your whole life. What do you think might be helpful in looking at the cattle market, and what might indicate exhaustion?
Well, I think cattle are going to make higher highs in September. I went back since 1976. We have a setup that we've only had 4 other times. And it's based on the fact that I look at market behavior and how it's historically behaved. And not that everything's guaranteed, but what was interesting, a little disclaimer there, but what was interesting was I found that in years when June cattle made the highest high for the year at that time, and then the August came on and took that high out, there were only 4 other times since 1976 that this has occurred. And the one year was 1980. That year, we moved up and we put our high in August, and that was the top. We broke into December. Then we had the year of 2008. I thought it was interesting, we skipped the 90s, but we had 2008 and 2014 and 2023, where the August contract took out the June high in the month of July, but went inside range in the month of August, and then moved on. One year went and put a high in September, and we broke into December. Another year, we put a rally in to, I think it was October, broke into December. And then we had, and I think it might have been 2023 that we did this, where we rallied into November and then broke into the middle of January, which we went from counter-seasonal to seasonal behavior, because many times cattle break into the middle part of January. This year, I'm wondering, because we made higher highs in August, not uncommon to see cattle rally in August. Sometimes they'll put a low in early August, and which is more seasonal, and then rally into September, maybe early October, and break. I think we're going to put a high in September, but the thing is, the break that we get, I don't think is going to, it's going to be a healthy break, and then I think the market's going to come right back and make another higher high.
Well,
now remember, I'm the girl that talked about $30 beans, so you know.
All right. I appreciate everybody who is here, who has made time, and for over the years. This has been fun, and we appreciate all of your insight over the years. Ross, Christy, Arlen, this is a quiz. I have to remember if I remember everybody's name with no keys. Matt, Sean, Chris, John, Sue, Naomi, Mark, Ted. Thank you so much. Give them a big hand, everybody. Market to Market is about all of you. It is people, they always say, what did Mark, what did Sue, what did Ross, what did they say on the show? And it is because of you over the years. We cannot thank you enough. I know Dave did it earlier, for all of your efforts, all of your ice on the front of your pickup truck or whatever hotel bar you've been stuck in. Thank you so much for making Market to Market a part of your schedule all these years. Thank you.
Can I just say, how about a cheer and a round of applause for Paul and the staff? The staff does a remarkable job. You do an unbelievable job hosting. You never try to put us into a bad situation. And
would you like to be?
No.
I'm just learning from, like you all watched each other. I watched Mark and I watched Chat. That's how I thank you. Again, it's not about me, it's about you. And people want to hear what you have to say. And I get stopped at plenty of gas stations on Saturday mornings. What did Ted say last night? I can't believe it. Did Ted bring his cornet? Yes, Christy.
I would have to say, though, I get asked just as much about Market's Market as I get asked about you personally.
What?
I get asked all the time, so like, what's Paul really like? I'm like, he's just as great in person as he is on TV.
You say I'm taller, right?
Time.
Please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's all fun. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. This has been a live MTOM podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time on Market to Market. Afterwards, Julie, everybody came up to me. It's great. It's wonderful. It was fantastic. You know, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, thanks, family. Technically, watching the show. All right, let's not do technical. Watch the show. You really couldn't watch the show, could you?
Not from my vantage point. I was focused on, I was hearing what they're saying, but you definitely take away different things when you're in it as opposed to just viewing it. But I did get to go back and watch it when I was putting it together and edit, and man, it was fun.
Okay, so a couple of things. I goofed up big time on the lead up to this in the seating chart, and we had to reverse things. David Feingold had to audible. I thought I had it made sense in my head. It didn't. We worked through that, but it was to have everybody on stage, but they were supposed to have shooting windows so you could get good, clear pictures of everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Well, luckily, I had strongly advocated to being able to see those ahead of time because initially it was going to be the first time you saw everybody on stage was at the event. And I said, can we pretty please have them all together beforehand so I can make sure I have all those shooting windows. So, and you saw, like, there's still times that you're going to see other people in the shots. We tried to do it as simply as possible because we were just coming off the state fair, which is a big production for us. And so we really didn't have a lot of time logistically to have a whole thing for it.
When we thought up the idea to do this, yes, we knew it was after the fair. We had at least a week. And I didn't know how many were going to show up. I was like, if we can get 5 to 6. We had 11.
11. Which
That was
is
awesome.
incredible.
Yeah.
So cool.
Only Jeff French and Don Rose were the only two not able to make it that are on our current list of analysts. And we staged them by seniority to the program. We had to make one little adjustment. But when you watch it back, you see these people, we see these people all the time.
Right.
But there was one thing that stood out to you that was weird.
Well, and then having them there, having them know where they were going to come out and sit and everything, they got to mingle with each other. And the kind of what we took for granted was this was the first time some of them were meeting each other. Like, we take it for granted. We see them each week. Yeah, of course they know so-and-so said something last week, this week. But they got to be with each other and seeing how they interacted with each other and just the respect. And it was so cool to see them.
The backstage would have been its own Market Plus Plus or
Could've.
MTOM Plus Plus Plus. Probably would. No, we wouldn't have had to censor it too much. Ted Seifert had just come off the crop tour, and so he was getting all these questions about, well, what really is it like? What are you really going to say? And Ross Baldwin and Christy Van Onchizeth, our two newest analysts, they really didn't know many of those people, except Ross is on stage with his boss, Matt Bennett, so that was kind of fun. Could you hear anything backstage?
I didn't really. I was getting my stuff ready, so I had your IFB, but I wasn't able to listen too much in your mic, but I didn't hear too much of what was going on.
Challenge for me and challenge for you was we were playing for a recorded program, but also playing for an audience. That is not an easy thing, at least from where I sit.
No, because you have to. You want to respect the people that took time out of their day and came for this event and give them a show, right? Not a show, but like
No, it's a show. It was
in-person experience. But at the same time, knowing this is going to live on in posterity on video and that we're going to probably come back to who knows how many times. For sure, you guys just saw that now, but who knows how many times we'll use parts of this for whatever purpose in the future. So making sure we had a good recorded outcome for viewers now and however it wants to be used in the future.
What I wanted to do is when I told people, we're not going to do any market analysis breakdown. Now, I did kind of have to get some at the end. But I always think that everybody's origin story and travel, those are two big topics.
Especially when it has to do with weather. Your favorite topic.
Oh, right. Weather. Right.
I will say on headset, the chatter was, oh, of course, Paul is like, how long are we going to talk about the weather, Paul? Like, some things just don't change.
Why move from something that in your head, not your head, my head works?
Right. I know.
the stories, I knew most of them. There was a story, Arlen Suderman, who just recently was on in our studios in Johnston, and I said, Arlen, I didn't know that you had done Husker Harvest Days and that we hadn't called you in a dozen years. I said, that was right as I started on the show, so I had no clue. I apologize. So we would have had him on a lot earlier. But that was, otherwise, I think I knew most of the answers.
Well, and because you had did you talk to him ahead of time saying this is kind of what we were going to do? So yeah, that way you don't have the empty void of like putting him on the spot with the question in front of a live audience having to come up with something. I will say though, I still don't know the answer. Ted brought that backpack on stage. Was he just really in that much of a hurry to go, or was the corn cob hat in there?
Yes, the hat was in there.
Okay, just didn't come out?
B, he was in a hurry to go. But then we found out he and Mark Gold were on the same flight from Chicago. I don't think I shared that day. Maybe I did.
Well, with the spilling of the
spilling,
drink.
and that was legit.
That
That
did
actually
happen.
did happen. I had been talking to Ted on Saturday before the event, Sunday of the event, and I did not know that there was a new shirt. And I did look at Mark Gold's shirt going, that is not the typical shirt Mark Gold wears.
No.
And found out that was what had happened. So if you missed that story, go back and watch the interaction. You also, I was surprised a little bit with, I always say I want everybody to interact, but it is hard to interact. And I did kind of hold back a bit, because once you start letting Sean Hackett ask everybody questions, I'm not sure I would have been able to get the show back.
Well, and some of them, if you're not able to interject and steer it back, we could have gone off, not the rails, but down a road that we could have been there for much longer. That hour 15 already went so quick anyway, that we could have, if they were to start asking each other questions, which I think they did, because before we recorded that, they had some time to interact with the people that came. And I think we're able to ask each other questions then too, and other people.
And I did tell people, I said, go ask, well, I really want to hear what Ted's going to say or John's going to say about this. I go ask him now, because I'm not really going to ask that question when we get going. So, I just try to head off some of that, what could have been disappointment.
And the funny part for me, because I went into, because they got to go all be in the studio that we record Market to Market in ahead of time. And I walked in there once and walking around, and I know all their faces. I know who they are. Me working behind the scenes, which is exactly where I want to be. We've talked about this before. This is not my comfort zone whatsoever. But they had no idea who I was. Oh, you're wearing an Iowa PBS shirt. You must work here. But it's like, I know a lot of things about you and hear all the things you and Paul talk about, because I'm usually listening before they record shows and stuff too. And it's kind of funny having that little advantage of knowing who they are. But they're like, who are you?
They all know Scott Faney, because Scott's been in the studio for a dozen years. They recognize a lot of the camera operators, might not get them all by name, but they recognize, hey, that what, so they do have that familiarity, but they don't ever go into the control room.
Nope. Just like we like it.
Just
not
the
that,
way
not
you
that
like
they
it.
don't want them to come in there. We just like to be away from the chaos.
Yeah, go ahead and put this over your face.
Yeah, right?
We don't want anybody to see.
Witness protection.
Witness protection. We've already
Too
blurred
late
you
now.
here in editing. You're editing this. So I thought it was good. The Virgil Robinson was there. If I had to have one probably disappointment, was not getting to hear more from Virgil. But he was the only former analyst we had there. And his stories are good, and we've gone back. We've done MTOMs. Maybe I'll link those here. Post them again, but his stories were always good, and I know he knew quite a few people, and they all recognized, oh, that's Virgil.
That's Virgil, yeah.
John Nichols was here, former senior producer, Wayne Bruns, who's been on the show.
Yep.
We had lots of some staff and some other connections, but I really enjoyed those people who's like, you used to be my Friday night date, or you used to be my Friday this, or we always watched. I drove from Nebraska. I drove from Illinois. That meant a lot.
Well, and as you saw at the end, just the respect that they had for the show. I mean, it's no secret around here. We joke about Market, the joke that Market is every Friday.
Joke.
Well,
joke.
And the fact that we pull it off every week. The global we. But man, people really do think a lot of the show and care a lot, and it was evident, and all the people that came out from all of the stops you guys made and the crowd that we had on that Sunday in August. So it was really neat, and really glad that we could do that.
Huge thanks to the tractor group that was there, the pork producer group that was there, the volunteers from Iowa PBS and staff. Caroline Clark.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. She went on the road with us for all of our stops in Cherokee, Jessup, Lincoln, and the one here in Johnston.
And Davenport?
And, LeClaire.
Oh, LeClaire.
And she was responsible for a lot of that. I know she's like, this is what I do. And like, but she does it well.
She does it. She doesn't just do it. She makes it special.
And very unflappable. There is not many curveballs you can throw at her. See, that's 2 sports references. I did pretty good. Only
Not
2.
bad.
Is that it? Is there anything else you want to put me on the spot on about this?
What was your biggest takeaway sitting up there and listening to them? If you could ask them any question without ramification of what the answer is going to be, like, who's your favorite host in these years,
Well, I think it was pretty obvious. It was Chet and
Chet,
Mark.
yeah.
I mean, those were the 2. And that's absolutely what it should be.
Well, just because of the duration they had been on the show. I mean, we've had others since, and they haven't been on as long, but I think they spoke highly of everyone that has worked on the program.
And it's funny how that it kind of changes over time, but it doesn't change. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because you and I both have worked, well, I started working on the show. You didn't start working on the show, but it is not much different in the format when I started 17 years ago as it is now. And even the previous years before that is still very similar. So
the video clip of John Roach in his first show, and I told him that he happened to be on the show beforehand, the Friday before that Sunday event. And I said, John, do you want to take a wild guess how much time you were on TV for that first episode? And he goes, I don't know. I go, I'm pretty sure it was 7 minutes.
So we've at least doubled that time now.
And he says, you know what? I do remember it because I used to think I have to get a whole lot of things said in a 7-minute time frame. And now I said, well, yeah, now we're, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. And we don't start with livestock like we used to. And, the biggest thing that I would have also have loved was to have Walt Hackney there.
Oh, man.
Walt was...
He was a gem.
Oh, and I know, again, Elaine Cubb, who we will, by the way, hopefully catch up with soon. She might return to the show, and that's all part of an episode that she needs to tell the story, if I can ever convince her to do it.
Man, I hope you can.
Oh.
I don't have favorites, but
Yeah,
she's up there.
She's wonderful. They're all wonderful, and they all, to make the time, the drive, the efforts, it is a big commitment. I mean, it could be easily we just put them on, on a remote site.
Yeah.
But in person just makes all the difference.
It makes it better. I mean, it's still, the content can be the same, but just having somebody in studio, because we did it during COVID and those times when we had to, but there's just something about being in the studio and having that live interaction between you guys that makes it so much better.
The greatest moment was the whole thing.
The greatest moment was the
whole thing. I'll answer it that way. Julie, as always, thank you for the directing and the editing on this episode. That was quite a task.
Well, this one was truly, truly my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
You want to take us out or you want me to?
You do it.
All right. That's Julie Knutson, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. This has been a special MTOM podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our look back at our 50th season. So we are still posting classic videos on our YouTube channel. So coming up very, very soon, you are going to see the first episodes of all of these analysts. We're kind of going to go in that order. So you'll see the 1976 or 77 John Roach episode. You'll see the first Sue Martin and Mark Gold episode. That one's a good one. There's plenty more to come. So thank you. If you have any feedback, send it to me in an email, market@iowapbs.org. Julie, say goodbye.
Bye.